to record it, but I'm going to start it and we'll see what happens. And if it gets recorded, great. And if it doesn't, oh well. Okay, so since I just started recording, let me do a quick start over real quick. If you just joined us, which is about 4 or 5 of you, we are recording. So for some people, that means they want to turn off their videos or whatever. I don't need your video on for anything in particular. So if you want to turn it off, that's totally fine with me. We are doing the Why We Trade 6th, 7th grade lesson series. And yep, I think that's good enough for intro to the video there. So, all right, here we go. Let's roll. So let's start off with an activity. This is something that the way we're going to do it might not be the way you would do it with a 6th grader. This one's going to rely on a breakout room component, which I know not everybody has access to, nor would you want to use them with 6th and 7th graders sometime. But I want us to do it this way so you get a sense of how the activity will work. Then I'll give you a suggestion on how you might want to do this instead of sending 6th and 7th graders to their own breakout rooms. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to assign you a number between 1 and 30. Actually, we're going to do 1. Oh, yeah, it's got to be 1 and 30. And the way I'm going to assign you a number is your birthday, the day of your birth. So if you would, put that in the chat box for me. That's going to serve 2 purposes. So the day of your birth. So I'm a 6, for example. All right, so we got 19, 29, 8. Very good. Lots of 6s, 9s. Okay, good. All right. Cool. All right, I'm going to, I don't want to have too many duplicates. So Charles, I'm going to give you a new number. You're going to now be a 5. Okay, Charles, you're a 5. You're not a 6 anymore. You're a 5. And I'll be nobody's a 19. Oh, there's a 19. I'll be a 20. Nope, there's a 20. I'll be 21. I'm 21. All right, I'm 21. Charles, you're 5. Everybody else is good to go. Now, the reason I had you pick that number is on the very next slide. That number is going to correspond with an item. As quick as you can, I need you to find that item and commit it to memory, okay? So write it down if you need to. I don't need you to put it in the chat box. In fact, I would rather you not put it in the chat box, but I need you to remember it. So jot it down, commit it to memory, hum it, make a song about it, whatever you need to do to remember it, okay? Here we go. All right, so find your item, commit it to memory. Sorry, Charles. I think I said I'm 21, okay? All right, find your item, jot it down, remember it, because that's going to be very important. And it's going away now. All right, awesome. In the chat box, I am putting a link. Oh, no, that's not the link I want. Ooh, Christopher. To Minty. And when you get there, it's going to ask you for a code, which I will also put in the chat box and display it on my screen right now. All right, so you are on your device, if you want to, on like your phone or whatever, or on a separate window, whatever you want to do, you are to head to menti.com, menti.com, and put in the code, which is now in the chat box as well. And since I'm a participant, I'm going to do the same thing. And what you're going to find when you do this is it's going to ask you how happy you are with your item. How happy you are. Does it bring you a lot of joy? Do you not like it? And you're going to rate it basically on a scale of 1 to 5, with a 5 being, yeah, I'm super excited, love this thing, and a 1 being, I have no use for this, Chris Cannon, and I do not wish to have it, and I would like to get rid of it. What am I? I'm that, I guess. And then you make sure you click submit, please. It's very important to click submit. All right. So on my screen, you are seeing the results, okay? So if you've got 2 screens open, one of them is what I'm going to refer to as your Menti page, and the other one I'm going to refer to as my screen, or the results screen. And this is perhaps the strangest distribution I have ever seen in this game. In fact, I'm going to take a picture of this to come back to in a minute. That is bizarre. Okay, so what do we have? What do we have? With a random distribution of items, it's sort of random in the sense of you had no idea what you were going to get because of your birthday and all. It's random-ish. In a random distribution of the items on that slide, we only really have 2 people who are happy with that, okay? Only 2 people were happy with the item they got. And then we have 3 people who are unhappy. And I don't want you to be unhappy. That's not cool. Now, these 9 people in the middle here, I don't know if they're closer to the unhappy side or closer to the happy side. Oh, we got one more happy person. All right. Regardless, there's not enough happiness going on here. I want to make this group of, there's 15 of us or whatever. I want to make this group of 15 happier. I want you to get more, economists would call this utility. I want you to get more benefit, more joy out of your, out of the items on the list. I thought I had some pretty cool items on the list, and this is not a great distribution. So if you were doing this with students and you did the same thing, you could now ask the question, how could we improve the happiness in this universe? You can unmute yourself or type it in the chat box. How could we improve the happiness of Cannon Land? What could we do?
I think that you can find out what makes people happy, first of all, what's useful to them. And then,
that's a very good idea. We could do that. Yep, find out what their interests are, find out what's good. I like that. That was really good. It's a good answer.
Somebody else said trade. Like we could trade items if whatever somebody else had made us happier than what we already are.
Boom. I like that. So thank you, Maggie and Lillian. Yeah. Although the other answers was really good too. In fact, if we were actually really trying to maximize everybody's happiness, that is what we should do first, is ask, well, what do you want? What do you need? We're going to get to that in a little bit when we talk about like how trade happens. All right, so great, perfect. So do that with the students, get them to a point where they say trade. They may offer it up right away. They may offer things like, yeah, well, I want to know what else they have or stuff like that. And sometimes kids will say just straight up, well, I am happy. Whoever this person over here rated themselves a 5, they are happy. So the distribution was fine for them. All right. But we're going to just jump into trade because the whole lesson here is called Why We Trade. Somebody jumped in late. Maybe it was Bianca. Does that sound good? Bianca, what we are doing, if I'm saying your name correctly, is we are going to trade items. And you don't have an item to trade. So Bianca, I'm going to say you are number 30. You're number 30, okay? So you have a shiny new stapler with staples. You have a shiny new stapler with staples. That's your item, so pretend you're holding that in your hand. Okay, here we go. I'm about to send you into a breakout room. When you get into the breakout room, your task is very simple. Try to make yourself happier through trade. Except, and this is going to be unfortunate, if you have an even number, so there were some 8s out there. There's a 6. Kristen, you're a 4. Colin, you're a 28. That's most of the even numbers right there. Oh, Christian, you're a 10. Stephanie, a 20. Terry, a 6. You do not get to trade. You can listen and you can tell people what you have, but you are not allowed to trade this round, okay? Only the odd numbers may trade. Okay, so in just a moment, a little thing is going to pop up on your screen to send you into a breakout room. And yep. And please join your room and participate. You know, talk to each other. Ask what you got. Put it in the chat box, whatever. Because you can have a chat box inside of the breakout room as well. Okay, and I'll be in one of them too. I'll join whichever one has sort of the fewest people in it. So you should be getting a little thing to click on now that says you've been invited to join breakout room, whatever. Please do so. All right, and I'm going to head to, good, people still joining, this is good. They have 3, they have 2, they have 3, they have 2, 3, 2. I'll join this one. All right, we got about like 20 something seconds, I think, before everybody gets back. I believe. 14 seconds. Awesome. We all, I think, made it back. If you traded with somebody that round, can you please write the phrase "I traded" in the chat box? I traded.
Can you say that again?
Yes, yeah. If you made a trade that round, if you would write the phrase "I traded" in the chat box, maybe it was just me and Lillian. That's totally possible. All right, so I had a couple of trades. Now, if you've ever done this with students in person, so if you have students in person, there's a version of this that you'll get where you cut out cards and you give them the cards, and they, I guess in this environment, you probably don't want them actually like getting close to each other and trading and stuff like that. So you could have them sort of announce and do it like that. Still same thing, like even numbers can't trade, or the cards actually have a letter on them, like you're a letter A, B, C, or D. So I would always say like, letter D, you're not allowed to trade this round. Anyway, so you can do this in person or virtual. This is the virtual version of it if you want to do it this way. But you'll get a lesson plan that has the in-person version too. So after that round, you can, if you want, take another vote to speed us up a little bit. I'm not going to take a vote that round. I'm just going to go and jump us into the final. But there's an opportunity here to vote, talk it up a little bit. Hey, if you didn't trade that round, there's one more trade round coming. Try to make yourself as happy as possible, et cetera, et cetera. And go on all that kind of rant. Okay, so here's what we're going to do this round. We're going to jump into the final round. We're going to go back into breakout rooms one more time. It'll probably be a little shorter this time, and really try to find somebody who's got something you want. Okay, and make a trade. Talk it over. Put it in the chat box if you need to. Like if you're worried about talking over each other or whatever. And this time everybody can trade. Everybody can trade. Even numbers, odd numbers, doesn't matter. You can trade multiple times. And the benefit of having the even numbers trade this time is there is going to be six or seven items on the market that were not on the market last round. So that's pretty cool. All right, so I'm putting you in a bigger breakout room as well, so you'll be able to talk to more people. Here we go. So if you would please click on your invite, which should be coming to you in the next 5 or 10 seconds. Make yourself happy. Go trade. Find something that'll make you a 5.
Cannon, I didn't have, I kind of got here a little late, so I didn't see what they were trading or anything.
Yes, that's fine. So here, while they're doing that, I'll explain what's happening real quick.
Okay.
So that'll catch you up. It's okay if you don't actually participate in the part here. So here's what we did to back you up a little bit. They started by getting a number between 1 and 30, which was your birthday, whatever your day of your birth. And then that number corresponded on this slide with an item. And that's where they got their items from. And then you were supposed to rank your item as to how happy it made you. So we did that through something called Minty that you're going to see here in just a second as we go back to it. And our original rankings looked something like this. All right, so we didn't have a lot of people very happy. So I asked the group, I said, hey, how could we make you happier? And they figured we could do it through trade. So we're going to see if that works. So that's how we got to where we are. All of this, you're going to get this slide and the lesson plan and all that. So all that'll be explained if you want to do it with students.
Okay, cool. I'll go to my breakout room. Sorry about the interruption in my background.
No problem at all. Hey, I'm glad you're here. All right. Breakout rooms closing in 7, 6. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right. If you traded that round, if you don't mind in the chat box, typing in I traded. And then, yeah, you guys are on the ball. Nice. Good group today. Yeah. So you can see on the screen what I'm going to ask you to do. Some of you may have done this activity before. This is not a new activity by any means. We're just trying to virtualize it a little bit for people who are all virtual. So if you are just getting back out of the breakout room, if you would go to your Menti page. If you've forgotten the code, it's at the top of my screen, and it's menti.com. Thank you, Terry. It's at the top of my screen is the code, sorry. And I'm asking you to rate your final item. So we're not doing any more rounds of trading. Technically, that was the third round. It should have been, because we normally would have done a round in the middle. Yes, I'm so glad you said that, Angelica. We'll talk about that in just a second. Actually, Angelica, would you mind unmuting yourself and explaining? Did it go up or down?
It went up. I was neutral at first because I had a ferret, and I thought, well, okay, ferret. But then when I started hearing about other people's items, I started to think, okay, ferret is actually kind of cool, and it's a companion, and their perspective helped me to see it in a little bit different light.
Awesome, thank you. So there's a real life analog for that. If you're like, yeah, that's because we're doing perception, that's why that would happen. That wouldn't really happen in the real world. It actually totally can happen in the real world. Knowledge can change your perception of value. So the story I always tell for this is my wife used to work on a TV show called Meerkat Manor. And it was basically, she was on the biology team that followed these meerkats all over South Africa so that Discovery could come in and film them. So she was on the science side. And the story I always tell about perception changing value is they went to this village for like Pepsi was a sponsor and brought them to this village and was trying to show like some of their nonprofit work or whatever. And they had this guy speak, and the guy spoke about how this village is a major yam and potato producer in South Africa, but in the 90s it was not. And what happened was somebody had come in like the mid 90s and built basketball courts everywhere. It was like a big thing, like with the Dream Team, and Charles Barkley came and went basketball to the world. And they covered all this area with flat top and made basketball courts, which was fine and fun at first. But over time, as the basketballs deflated and the goals got bent or whatever, that land was perceived as fairly useless. So they had built some storage containers. They were, using them as parking lots, whatever. So it's not very useful. So that land had a perceived value of fairly low, like a 2 maybe. And then somebody came in and like a nonprofit or somebody came in and said, hey, this land, like the soil is perfectly suited for growing potatoes and sweet potatoes and yams and all that kind of stuff. And they were like, oh, we don't know how to do that. So they went in and cleared out all of the basketball courts and taught them how to, farm and stuff like that. And boom, there it is. Now it's a major potato producer. So their perception of that land now is very different because of and that one actually has real value too. But yeah, perception can absolutely change. All right, so you don't need me to explain to you what happened there. That was our original numbers. Boom, there's the new numbers. All right, so if I go back to that standard, you know what the standard said? Give examples of how buyers and sellers benefit from trade. I don't need to give you an example, you just lived it. You just did it yourself, right? And that's the beauty of that activity. I've done that activity since 2005. I think it was probably the first time I did it. I've done it with 6th graders. I've done it with high schoolers hundreds of times, literally hundreds of times. I've done it with adults, 3rd graders, 8th graders, college students. Virtually now, this is my 11th time doing it virtually. It has never not worked. Not a single time. Why? Because people do benefit from voluntary trade. In a classroom, you can get into a couple of really, really good discussions here. We don't have anybody left unhappy. That's unusual. Usually the person who has spam is still pretty unhappy. Sometimes the ferret person is still pretty unhappy. There's you guys didn't get some of the other like sort of crappy items. There's like an old slice of pizza or something. Oh, no, it's a fresh slice of pizza. There's like an open strawberry Pop-Tart. You know, you always have a couple of clunkers in there. I don't know. I thought somebody got the $100 Toys R Us gift card. I don't know what you plan to do with that since there's no Toys R Us. That was supposed to be one of the clunkers. But anyway, here we go. Back on track here. So if you're doing this with students, you may not like the breakout room thing. You're like, no, I'm not sending my 6th graders away to a breakout room. I don't trust them. So a workaround for that then would be to try to do it with everybody. In a chat, and you may have to organize that a little bit, like go one at a time. And hey, you know, what do you have? You know, Sally, what do you have? You know, Kamika, what do you have? You know, and then ask them, and then tell them to put in the chat box. You know, hey, if you want to trade, tell everybody what you want. Or you could have a Google Doc where everybody could sort of, you know, edit it as they go. So that's an option for that. If you're in person with students, man, cutting the cards apart and giving them to them randomly and then letting them trade, that's the best. That's what I usually do, and that works out really well. So you talk through these questions here. I'm going to speed us up a little bit, not go into all of them, but you see what you're supposed to be getting at here. How many people traded? Are those who traded happy? What obstacles did you face? Boy, this would have been a lot easier with money. Like if I could have just bought things, right? Because bartering was difficult. I had to find somebody who wanted what I had, and I had to want what they had. That was difficult. It took time. There was no guidance on how to, you know, improve. There's lots of problems with this, and so they should see some of that too. What happened to overall happiness? It went up. Why? Because trade does that. Trade moves around resources to more efficient uses. All right, if you want to get all fancy and technical about it. That's what trade really does. It moves resources around to more efficient uses. The world is not allocated efficiently, right? I like to eat strawberry shortcake year round. Well, I live in Georgia, and in December, it's hard to eat strawberry shortcake because we don't have any strawberries. But Honduras has strawberries, so if I could get strawberries from Honduras, I can eat strawberry shortcake year round. That kind of stuff. So we can move items around a lot better through trade. This last bullet is very important. Did trade make everyone better off? In this case, almost yes. But in real life, no, not necessarily. And that might have things to do with, you know, if we're trading and I can get my items cheaper somewhere else, that may make me want to shut down factories or not produce as much stuff here, and we may lose jobs and things like that. Please, 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 pretty please, when you teach this, stress the voluntary component. People gain from trade, buyers and sellers, as long as the trade is voluntary. Voluntary is really important. Like, I want to go to the store and buy a Cinnamon Toast Crunch, right? The store wants to sell me Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So when I take my money and I give it to them, they give me the box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, we're both happy. We're both better off. And that's great. And then the second part is, this is not in the standards in middle school, it is in high school, but you could at least mention it, that the other thing that trade needs is to be non-fraudulent. Non-fraudulent. So if I tell you I have a signed baseball of, you know, whoever, Ronald Acuna, and you think, oh, that's really exciting, I'll pay you $50 for it, then that's what you think you're getting. If you find out later I just wrote his name on it, that's a fraudulent trade and you didn't benefit. I still did because I got $50, but you didn't. And then keep in mind that monetary cost is not always a factor. There's a YouTube video here that I love. So make a note to yourself at some point that on slide 13, there's a really good video link. It's 4 minutes, totally appropriate for middle school kids. And it basically walks you through what you just did. Okay, so at the end of this, I'm going to put a link to this presentation in the chat box so you can snag the presentation. And in the presentation, it's got a lot of links to lesson plans and activities and stuff like that. So that's what this is on slide 14. This is not a really, to me, it's not something you would do with the kids virtually. You might disagree, and if you do, let me know. To me, it's something you would assign them. So I think you could turn around and assign what I'm about to show you here with a little work. You have to tweak the answer documents, stuff like that. But I do want to show it to you because it uses a website that I want to make sure you're super familiar with. What I'm trying to get at here is, what do we trade? We just answered the question, why do we trade? And that is because both sides are better off and we can reallocate resources to better uses. But how do you know what you should trade? Well, in the trading game we just played, it was easy. I gave you an item, right? I had a guitar, somebody had cat food, we traded. In real life, though, it doesn't work like that. In real life, you've got to figure out what you're good at. And the standards use this word here, specialization. Specialization, that's a great word. And the reason it's in the standards, and the reason it's in 6th and 7th grade, and in high school, and in 2nd grade, interestingly enough, is because it is what makes trade work. So definition-wise, it's, it's kind of wordy, focusing productive resources on a limited number of goods and services that bring value. All right, so instead of producing everything, we're going to produce a limited number. I always like to give the students some other words it's similar to and different than, just vocabulary-wise. Sometimes that's a good thing to do. So specialization, it's like being focused. It's like having a niche, which I don't know, 6th graders may not know that word, but it's like a specialist. Usually you wouldn't use the same word, but in this case, I think it works because they've heard of specialists, especially if they play video games. Some video games have like a tactical specialist or a fighting specialist or whatever. So they're used to that kind of phrase. And differentiation, like I'm trying to do something different for each one of you. Expert, yeah, expert's a good one too, thank you. And then it's opposite of generalization, or the phrase jack of all trades. Economists hate the phrase, you're a jack of all trades. Because in economic theory, if you're really a jack of all trades, then you're not probably good at any of them, although that's not true in real life, but that's where that phrase comes from. The other phrase economists hate, or if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. That's only true if you're good at it. So the other thing I think that's important to teach with specialization is it's not some crazy weird concept. It's not like, oh man, specialization, that sounds super fancy. It's not. Specialization is everywhere. So I've used this slide for a long time, or some version of it. I actually just made this one, but I've got a very similar version I've used for years in the classroom. And just straight up ask them. So get your typing fingers ready and just throw these in the chat box. What does Home Depot specialize in? Or in what does Home Depot specialize? Throw me some answers in the chat box. Bianca says wood. What else? Do-it-yourself, construction tools, paint. All right, good. Yeah, so you guys got the right answer. So make your kids answer that and wait for them to answer. Yeah, I like that. That's my answer right there. Usually, it's home improvement items, right? That's their specialty. Do they make any of those things? All those things you just listed, does Home Depot make those? Yeah, they don't make a lot of them. So really what they specialize in is selling them. They're really good at identifying tools and products that people need and providing them in one location. That's their specialty, right? And they're really, really good at it. In fact, they're so good at it, they're like one of the biggest companies that does it in the world. And so within Home Depot, there's specializations, right? There's a paint department, and there's an electrical section, and there's a gardening section. So you can have subspecialties. What does Pizza Hut specialize in? Remember, your answer is like a 6th grader. What does Pizza Hut specialize in? All right, woo, yeah. But they sell other things, sure, but they specialize in making pizza. But they also, they have other products too. What does Kia specialize in? Kia. What does Kia specialize in? Yep, good. All right, so the one on the bottom left, the picture you're seeing on the bottom left, what is that a specialty of, or what is that specialty? Yeah, so different approach there, right? We got a hairdresser, and there you're talking about a person's specialty, and a fairly narrow one, right? So if we took that hairdresser, or hairstylist, or hair maintenance, I'll try to use a hair cutter. If we took that person, we don't know her, all right? or you might, I don't know her. If we took her and said, hey, you got to stop what you're doing and go work at Home Depot, let's assume she's a really, really good hairstylist, okay? Looks like she is. Are we getting the best use of her skills and resources? If we take her and we say, hey, you got to go work at Home Depot, are we getting the best use of her resources? What's your best guess? Probably not. Now, we don't know her. We don't know for sure, but we're probably not. And that's what specialization is all about. Specialization is all about trying to allocate resources so that we are getting the best possible use. And the last example I always make sure I give is that one on the bottom right. You are highly specialized, right? Think about it. You're specialized as a, quote, teacher, right? That's a specialized field in general. But then beyond that, you're subspecialized into a middle school teacher, which is really different, right? People who haven't taught middle school, and I haven't taught it much, but I have enough experience to know that it's hellacious sometimes. You're subspecialized as a middle school teacher. And then within that, you're subspecialized again as a social studies teacher. You may also teach language arts and math, and you probably do, or something else, but you're at least part of what you do is social studies. And then you may have specialties beyond that. You may also be gifted certified or special ed certified or ESOL certified, right? So there's specialization everywhere. Teach it like that to the students first. All right, what we just did, so that you don't just go, well, let's look at what Brazil specializes in. Well, let's understand specialization in general first, and then we can go to what the content of the standards is all about. So in order for specialization to work, you got to have somebody producing the things you're not producing. The reason Home Depot can exist, and the reason people can, well, let me not use Home Depot, let's use the hairdresser. The reason the hairdresser can do what she does is because Pizza Hut exists, right? Let that sink in for a second. Like, what do you mean? The reason the hairdresser can do what she does is because Pizza Hut exists, because there are other people out there making food. There are other people out there teaching her children while she's hairdressing. There are other people out there, other companies making cars, so she doesn't have to make her own car. There's other people out there making scissors, so she doesn't have to make scissors. She can just use them, right? That's what makes specialization so powerful. And that's why every single advanced economy in the world does it. That's why nobody barters. That's why nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody. Bartering's still around, but it's not a primary form of exchange. That's why you have very few examples of traditional economies. You know, when you're teaching command market traditional, you're like, well, it's not really traditional economies. Traditional economies, while they may have some degree of specialization, they usually are trying to do, you know, all, like they're trying to do the gather food and deal with the housing, and they have cultural norms and things like that they're trying to abide by. We don't. We like specializing. We tell people you've got to pick a job, you got to pick a major, you got to, you know, we really promote this idea kind of as a country. All right, so now let's get into a little bit of the content briefly here. And then I want to show you a quick game that I think your students would really like, and then we'll wrap up. This lesson, and if I backtrack here, the actual lesson plan itself is on slide 14. So make a note of that when you get the slides here in just a minute. This lesson is going to try to answer the question of what do countries trade? So whatever region of the world you're in, you could plug this lesson in tomorrow if you had to, and I think you'd be good to go. It starts off with something like this. So take a look at the numbers on the screen here. And if you would, in the chat box, put two numbers together that you feel like would make good trading partners. The items you are seeing on the screen are their exports. So these are things this country exports, things they produce a lot of and send out. Identify two you think would make good trading partners. All right, good. Got some answers coming in. Sunny, would you mind unmuting yourself and explain why you picked 3 and 11?
Sure. So if your country has animal products, so you probably have plenty of food, but you don't have enough oil to transport that food, you probably want to trade with country 3.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a great answer. Yeah. Let's see. Who have not heard from? Charles. Charles, 2 and 8. Why'd you go with 2 and 8?
Diversity of products.
Yeah, 2 and 8, they do have a lot of stuff that they could trade with each other. That's a really good answer. I don't know what your 6th and 7th graders would say. If they said diversity of products, I'd probably fall out of my chair. But that's a good answer. Yeah. All right. So you guys get the idea, right? So that's how you start. You might want to get a few more kids involved. I'm just getting a couple to give you an idea. And the point you're trying to make here is, yeah, you want to look for things the other person doesn't have. If you're country 4 and you are exporting canned tuna as 93% of your exports, that tells me you do a lot of fishing. You must have a lot of resources dedicated to that industry, because 93% of everything you're shipping out is canned tuna. That's a lot. And the countries are listed in the lesson plan. It tells you what each of these countries are. Man, that's a whole bunch of canned tuna. I bet, just guessing here, you're probably not dedicating a lot of resources to producing apparel and clothing and footwear and things like that. So 4 and 2 then might make a good trading partner. All right, so you get the idea. This is specialization. And like I said, the list of countries is actually in the lesson plan. You have an option here. I'll give you a choice on this. You can either stick along with me if you want, or you can click on the link that I'm putting in the chat box and you can go play around with this site yourself a little bit. Where the lesson goes next is it sends the students to this website, the Observatory of Economic Complexity. Some of you may be familiar with this. If you're not familiar with it, I'm going to go through very quickly here, since we're at 4:47, what the lesson wants the students to do. Let me say, however, that I think you could get probably 5 or 6 solid assignments out of this website. This thing is pretty phenomenal if you played around with it on your own. So if you're following along with me, here's how the lesson works. You're also free to, you're an adult, I put the link in the chat box. You can click around on stuff as you want. Okay, I wanted to make sure I had everything I was looking for there. All right, so the lesson is going to have the students go to, well, and I'll show you there's some, what was I going to say? There's some screen captures too over here. I'm not going to go through the screen captures just yet because I want to go to some of the other stuff. All right, so I want to go to visualizations is where I'm headed. Visualizations. Well, actually, I'm going to back up. I'm going to do this a different way. I'm going to put in a country down here is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put in Brazil. That's what I've been using for all my other workshops. I'm going to put in Brazil, and when I click Brazil, it's going to take me to this this really, really, really detailed, fancy-looking page here that is all about Brazil's trade data. Pretty much anything you want to know about Brazil's trade data, it's on this page. And that's everything from their number of exports, their number of imports, who they export with, who they import with, their GDP growth is on here. You've got service, goods, all sorts of nonsense, right? Just tons and tons of stuff. And you're like, whoa, that's a lot of stuff. So the lesson asks the students basically, first of all, to identify what is it Brazil is trading. So there's this nice little box here in the middle, right, where my mouse is, if you're on my page at least. And it tells you Brazil's top exports are soybeans, crude petroleum, iron ore, blah, blah, blah. They import refined petroleum. So let that sink in for a second. They export crude, right? So they make a lot of the oil, they send it to somebody else, and then they import the refined version. So the gas and the oil and stuff like that they can use. Import a lot of vehicle parts. They also import crude petroleum. And that's a great discussion to have with kids. Why in the heck would you export it and import it? Could be different grades, could be different quality. Could be contracts with people, like you would promise to buy so much from them, even though you make it yourself. The U.S. does that, right? The U.S. Both imports and exports wheat, for example, lumber. So sometimes sometimes it be like that, as the kids would say. Now, what you're ultimately trying to do here is figure out where this stuff is going. So there's this little chart over here to the side. It says, tells you where Brazil is exporting mostly to. But I want to show you a slightly different way to do it. And this is the way the lesson shows you or suggests you do it. You scroll down here, and all this is explained in the lesson plan to something called product trade. You can also click this link at the top here that says, conveniently enough, product trade. When you click product trade, it's going to show you everything Brazil trades in these nice kind of color-coded charts. So there's a little exercise here with the students and just, reading the graph, explaining what the colors mean. On the left-hand side, we have different categories of products. So we've got mineral products in red, vegetables in yellow, transportation in blue, so on and so forth. On the right-hand side, we've got who. So we've got Asia in red, Europe in purple, North America in blue, so on and so forth. And what the lesson suggests the students do is click the region of the world this country exists in. So you might be using China, you might be using Brazil, whatever. So I'm using Brazil, so I'm going to click South America. And did you notice how on the right-hand side my chart changed? Sometimes you have to click it twice because it wants to reset. How my chart changed, all right? So it no longer is showing me the whole world, it's just showing me South America. And the lesson is really pretty silly, but I think it's a cool thing for students to get. It basically asks the students to use a map, and the maps are provided in the lesson, by the way. Use a map and identify, based on this website, Brazil's nearest trading partners. So who is Brazil's #1 trading partner in South America? It's Argentina. So the student should use a map like the one you see on your screen here. And it's very simple. They draw an arrow from Brazil to Argentina, indicating that that is one of their top trading partners. All right, who else? I think both the Guays are in there. So Paraguay is one. All right, Uruguay is another. Now, I'm just doing this through the annotate tool in, what am I in here? Zoom. The students could do this with Google Draw. You could use another website for it, whatever. You could have them print it and hand draw it if you're in face-to-face with students. The maps are all in the lesson plan. When they're finished, it ends up looking something like this. So here's one for Portugal. And what are we trying to do? What's the point? Why are the kids doing this? Because we want them to see that for most people, for most countries, their top trading partners are who? Their neighbors. People tend to trade with the people nearby, with the exceptions of things they don't specialize in. And this gets a little geography in there. It helps with your math skills. You're getting some economics in. It's a good little, cute little silly thing, but I think students would appreciate it. It's easy for you to grade because you really just got to look for arrows to make sure they're going to the right place. So that's all explained in that lesson. It's a really good trade lesson. And then, like I said, this website, go to town. I think you could get an activity out of this on what they're exporting, why they're exporting those things. You could do something on specialization, like identify, 5 countries and what do they specialize in. You could, I don't know, it's on and on and on. Right? You don't need me to tell you, you guys know. Yeah, that's right, Angelica. I like that too. So that website's linked there. The last thing I'm going to show you, since we're running short on time here, if you have never seen Trading Around the World, oh, you're missing out. It is such a fun little game. I'm just going to give you the quick version. It is on slide 24, the link to it. And then on slides 25 through 31, there are some screen captures that basically tell you how to play the game. I'll give you a quick version of it right here. Just watch my screen for just a minute, and it's super intuitive. Here's how the game works. When you get to the game, you got to scroll down to the bottom. It'll ask if you're a new player or if you've played before. If you stop a game in the middle and you want to come back to it, it gives you a code. So you can actually come back to it and play your game over again if you wanted to. But I'm going to click as a new player. There's my code I would need to remember if I wanted to come back to this. And the game is quite simple. Pick a region of the world. Yes, Maggie, yes, I'm sharing everything with you here in just a second. This entire presentation, which would include the Why We Trade lesson, that lesson I just talked through, and links to this and that video. Yep, coming up in just a second. So since I was Brazil, I'm going to be Guillermo here. And here's the game, right? Super easy. I have $5,000. Guess what the point of the game is? To make more than $5,000. That's it. How am I going to do that? Well, look at all the stuff I have to sell. I could sell bananas. I could sell coffee. I could sell crude oil, right? Because Brazil, we know at least, was a crude oil. So let's sell some bananas. So when I click bananas, Sophie here, Sophie says, hey, she wants some bananas. And she's saying she will buy 1 metric ton of bananas for $516. Now, I think Sophie can do better than that. So I'm going to ask her, I want higher, right? I want more money. So I'm going to ask her if she can buy them for $550. And so all I did is change it to $550. I make her an offer, and Sophie says, I can barely afford it, but I'll pay $550. Do we agree with the price? And I click yes. Now, if you look right above here, there's this little section here. It's telling me that the economic conditions are bad. And since the economic conditions are bad, I might not be able to get as much money for my items. So now might be a good time for me to go buy some stuff. All right, because I want to try to buy some items too. So let's say I want to buy some aluminum. All right, Donald here in Australia, he says he'll sell me some aluminum. I don't want to pay $993. I only want to pay $900. So we make him an offer, and he says, I wish I could get more, but things are tight for everyone, and he'll take my money. So that's how the game works. Watch what happens if I try to buy cheese. Ooh, uh-oh, womp womp. Sorry, I can't trade cheese with you. The governments of our countries are in a trade dispute, and the students can then get into trade barriers. Super fun game. You could have the students, the ultimate goal of the game is to try to sell all of your stuff. So if you sell it all, you could have them report back to you with, how much they made, their final dollar amounts, all that kind of stuff. And I think that'd be a lot of fun for your students. All right, we are right up against time here. I just put a link in the chat box to a survey that would be super helpful to the council if you wouldn't mind completing that real quick. Shouldn't take you just a moment. Most of it's just buttons to click. You don't have to enter a whole lot of stuff. And then I'm about to put the link to this presentation under that. And you'll want to go ahead and I think click on that and make you a copy of it, and you'll be good to go. If for some reason you cannot find something, email me. Please use us as a resource. We are here to help. Our whole mission is to help teachers teach economics and personal finance. So that's why we exist. So we are willing to do that as much as possible. Look for more 6th and 7th grade stuff coming in October. And if there's something specific that you really need help with, send me an email on that too, because I can tailor a lot of our stuff to be whatever you guys need. All right, so the survey is there. The presentation can be found here. I am going to stop talking unless anybody has any questions. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for taking some of your time with us this afternoon, and let us know what we can do to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you.